it ain't exclusive. If it ain't an EMLN exclusive, it's your boy BQ. We are not in the heart of Silicon Valley. We are actually, what would you call this area exactly where we're at right now?
So if we're going to be technical with where we're at, we kind of are where Silicon Valley started, in the North First Street area.
Yes.
So we have all the tech giants around here.
Yeah.
That kind of started Silicon Valley. So we're here.
So let me take that back. We are in the heart of Silicon Valley right now. The legit Silicon Valley, the locations that people don't talk about, the tech businesses that people don't see, that isn't the most sexiest, but they producing the most money, and I know that's facts.
They are. It's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
But you know what though? It's beautiful to come out here and see kind of where it started and to see where we've gone. Right.
Yeah. It's a big landscape, and right now, we're in Mentor Monday. This is a new segment for the EMLN podcast. For the ones that know, we do interviews with people that are culture leaders, innovate in their industries, and most importantly, they're leaders. They're people in the community that have untold stories that people don't know about, or they do know about them and they have not been heard through other ears that might have gone through similar experiences. So yeah, I have a very special guest today. We're in for a very special treat. Some I already know, but there are some people out there, believe it or not, that still don't know who Chef Baca is. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself, let the people know who you are, and kind of like a little bit more about yourself.
So I'm Rodney Baca, chef. I have a company with my wife, Madeline Baca. It's the Shop by Chef Baca, Baca Catering, and we do Baca Consulting. So we've kind of started the Baca brands. So if you think I have an ego with my last name, you're absolutely right. No, I'm kidding. So I just, I'm someone who's been around this industry for quite some time, been afforded great opportunities in the cooking and restaurant and catering industries, and kind of made my way through it and worked all over the States, Europe, and now I'm here.
Yeah.
Not a native to San Jose, but I love it. I call it my home. My wife is born and raised here, so for me, this is home. And just someone who cares about our community and wants to see us grow and become Silicon Valley, not just in the tech sense, but Silicon Valley in the artistic sense, in the culinary sense, and so that's who I am.
So when did your journey in the food industry begin?
So I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and growing up, my grandmother had a restaurant.
Okay.
So I grew up in the restaurant business, and raised by a single mom with my brother, and my mom is remarried. I have to say a shout out to my dad, he's not my stepdad, he is my dad. He came in the picture, but growing up, I was raised by a single mom in this restaurant, and so believe it or not, my mom couldn't cook in the restaurant, so I had to learn.
Wow.
And so that was my start. And then I'll give you a quick story. When I was 12, my mom at that point married my dad.
Yeah.
And we weren't well off. It wasn't an easy go of things, but I remember the local putt-putt, like where the arcade games are to go play miniature golf and all that.
Yeah.
And at 12 years old, I asked my dad, I said, hey, can I get $5 so I can go play at the putt-putt?
Yeah.
And jokingly, he said, get a job. So what I did, and for maybe your people that you're associated with may not know this, but we used to have something called the phone book.
Yeah.
And
maybe a few people.
And so what I did is I got that phone book and I called every restaurant in the phone book.
Wow.
And an Italian restaurant said you can come wash dishes. So at 12 years old, that was my start, washing dishes. Carrero's Pizza, Joe, love you, thank you for the opportunity. And that's where it started.
And how old were you when that was?
I was 12.
Wow.
So he let me come Saturday and Sundays, and I'd wash dishes and
how much was your paycheck like every time you?
I made $2.35 an hour.
Wow.
And I would probably bring home about $24, and a pizza though. You know,
you came back with pizza,
and
though.
so I made sure that I went home and my family ate, right?
There you
And
go.
it was amazing, and it taught me a lot, and it was those child laws are put in place now for a reason, but at that point I was super stoked and excited. And I mean, think about it. You're 12 years old, you get to go, you're hanging out with these people, learning how to make food and seeing these interactions.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I'm hooked.
Yeah. And so the journey began at 12 years old, and here we are now.
Now I'm 14. So no, I'm kidding.
No.
Now I'm 46. So that was, God, I can't even do my math. 34 years ago, and so I like we talked before. I was into sports. That was my thing. I thought in my head, like many, that was going to be my career.
Yeah.
I loved football, basketball, and baseball, and that's what I did. And that same year, at 12 years old, my family. We had a huge move.
Yeah.
So we moved from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Madisonville, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So talk about a culture shock.
Yeah.
There was 70% white, 29% black, and 1% other.
Yeah.
And my brother and I were part of that 1% other.
Wow.
So it was a definite different feeling.
Yeah.
It was a shift in how I grew up and what I knew.
Yeah.
And so
this is in high school, or is
I was in 8th grade when I moved over there. And so I went all through high school there and ended up going to college out there. And
football a little different out there, though.
You know what? We're big boys over there.
That's what I was saying. They're big.
We're big white boys over there. Yeah, they are. And I remember thinking when we were there, I mean, these guys at that time, this is in the 90 through 94.
Yeah.
These boys could actually, they looked like a pro team, how big they were in our counties and so on.
Yeah.
And I mean, we ate well, not healthy, but well.
Yeah.
In those areas. But it's just one of those things. So it was very, I learned a lot. It was, there was a really, I hate to say it, but there was a lot of prejudice throughout that area at that time. There, and we're right there with the South, right?
Yeah.
So, but it taught me a lot, and it also allowed me to dream, right? Like I'm going to get back to the West Coast because I lived in California as well, in New Mexico. But I'm going to get back there one day. I'm not going to stay in this situation, and it was the things that I learned from it. At one point, I thought, wow, this is really weird. I'm treated so differently.
Yeah.
I feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The things that were done. But now I look back and I'm like, man, I'm so happy I went through that stuff. And to be honest, there were some great people there as well. So I'm so happy I went through that. It gives you resilience,
And then at what point was the shift when you went from living in the South to coming back to the West Coast?
So I was 19. It's funny, my parents again. So Rudy, my older brother, and I were at University of Kentucky in Lexington. My dad had an offer to come back. So my dad is actually from Santa Clara County.
Okay.
So they had an offer to come move back here and go work at he was working at Spectra Physics here. And they did that. Rudy and I finished our semester in Lexington and came back here. So I was 19. I decided, because while I was there in Lexington, I was working at the Plaza Hotel.
Okay.
And at that point, I was making big bucks. I was making almost $7 an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, big bucks.
And I was a full-time student and getting $7 an hour. And so, but I loved it.
Yeah.
So at the hotel, I started learning about stocks and about French cuisine and all this stuff. And I was like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And at that time, I also realized I'm not going to be an athlete.
Yeah.
One, I started drinking and got fatter, which but I was a kid. I was in college. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I loved cooking. So at 19, I moved back here, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And instead of going back to college, I went to California Culinary Academy in San Francisco, and started working at at that time, the Red Lion Hotel, which is actually similar. It's kind of by where we are now. It's on North First Street. And that was my job, and I loved it. And my brother moved down to LA, and fast forward a year, and I got an opportunity with the Ritz-Carlton Marina Del Rey to go work there under Gerard Ferry, who had a 2-star Michelin restaurant there. And I jumped on that opportunity. So I left culinary school, jumped on to go to LA, and then the rest is history.
Wow. How long were you in LA for?
Off and on 10 years.
Wow.
So
you were all over the West Coast.
I was. So I was fortunate in LA and in our industry, in the food and beverage industry, you get to meet people throughout that can help propel your career, or can help stunt your career, right?
Yeah.
And it depends how you want to look at it. Gerard was a great mentor, and actually was the worst person on earth for the first 6 months I worked there.
It's usually how mentors start.
You know, and it's like
the fun people they're not the people that you want to hear stuff from sometimes.
It was tough. He was a traditional French chef, and for us, our industry was pots and pans were flying. The berating of like how bad you are and whatnot. This is what it was. Very militaristic, and especially in a French kitchen, a European kitchen in general. But for me, I remember my cousin lived in Hermosa Beach, and I was staying there, and it was like literally on the beach. And you're taking a guy straight from Kentucky, basically, right? Yeah. And I remember driving from Marina Del Rey to Hermosa Beach, going, I can't stand this, dude. And then I'd look out at the water, and I was like, hey, this isn't so bad, though. You know, this is pretty awesome. And so I'd go back to work the next day. I didn't want to, but I'd go back, and I'd take that abuse, if you will. Yes, chef. That's your answer. Yes, chef. And I kept doing it, and I kept doing it. And then I noticed I was getting better. He didn't have so much to say about me, and then it got easier and easier. After 6 months, he's like, changed. And he's the one who set me on my path in a lot of ways. Gave me opportunities I could never dream of. You know, went and worked at Le Meridian Beverly Hills, and was able to go to Europe and work out there, and all different places that I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to do.
That's awesome. I think I appreciate you touching base about your mentor, just because this is Mentor Monday, right? And I think it's important for us to have mentors, people that we can, rely on as far as information. Sometimes we need to get checked when we're surrounded by a bunch of people. Once you get to a certain status, people are always saying yes to your ideas, or they're not giving you pushback. So sometimes someone that's like external giving you constructive criticism, sometimes it's not what you want to hear, but sometimes it might be the difference for you to get to that next level.
It really is. It also will push you, right?
That's what I mean.
It will totally push you. Like, for me, I didn't want this guy talking trash to me anymore.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to achieve more, and I wanted to showcase that what I can do. And I've continued that, and I have the greatest mentor and the greatest partner in the world, and that's my wife. She will say something that and put me in check so quick, or maybe that's not the way to go. She's just, and I love that. Maybe not at the time. But I do love that I have someone who will do that, because that's how I have to operate. Because I think so outside the box that I can take you on a journey that maybe we shouldn't be going on, right?
I can relate with that, because I'd be like very ambitious with my mind sometimes. Like, I catch myself trying to pitch ideas that we're not even thinking about. We're like, whoa, that was a completely right turn, but it's like, let's look into more, you know what I'm saying? But I like the fact that you talked about how your partner is also your wife, right? And your wife is also in your life as a significant other, but also a part of the operation. So like, for someone like that, how long have you been married now?
So we've been married 4 years. We've been together for 13 years. That's my fault as well. But she has, it's funny, because initially, before we actually were married, I thought how talented I am and what I can do, and I don't need someone on my side, right? Because I already knew certain people. I already knew that these parties I could get, or I could do whatever. But to be honest with you, it wasn't until she interjected herself into our business that I saw it grow and start to flourish. Because I need it. I know what I need. I need someone who's going to be my right hand, but also is going to hold me accountable. And to make sure that we make wise decisions, because I've made many, many unwise decisions. And will continue to do so. That's why I need that.
So the reason I highlighted that is because I've interviewed a lot of people, but I haven't interviewed a lot of people that are married. But I think it's a great thing though, because like my partner, like she's helped me out in a lot of situations where, when my back was against the wall or when I didn't have what I have right now, like she's still around because she was there when I didn't have it, and now when I do have it, she's still the person I seek for a perspective, or just to get an opinion. Because it's like because I agree with you. Like I can do it. Like I can do a lot of this stuff by myself. But a lot of the times, we might get ahead of ourselves, or we're thinking more with passion and emotion, and not with logic and like perspective and like a clear head. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, I agree. I mean, so the way I think. So I'll give you a kind of a into this rabbit hole that's the Baca brain.
Yeah.
Is that I believe that anything is achievable and that we can do things. And I try to be as logical and as thoughtful as possible. And sometimes I can't communicate that the way I believe it, but I know it's there, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes just in that aspect, Maddie can come in and put what my thoughts are to paper that helps so that other people understand what I'm trying to say.
It's like translating.
Exactly.
That's funny. That's literally how my girlfriend is, Lisa, the same exact way.
And for me, it helps. And so I've always thought I'm very lucky, and it's been hard. I'll give you an example. I mean, we were dating, and we have 2 boys, and we literally got this new place, and we're living there, and I got fired. I was working a job. This is probably 8-9 years ago. I got fired. I was a conflict of interest because I had 1 foot in and 1 foot out because as I told you, I've always known that this is what I do. I'm an entrepreneur, but I also have to make a living, right?
Yeah,
and at that time, I got fired, and I remember having to come. I called her, and I'm like, hey, I got fired. I used to tell her that every day. I call her up, like, hey, guy, I just got fired. And she, shut up, But I'm like, no, for real, I really got fired today. And I remember I had no time. I took a job as a consultant the very next day, but I had no time to process it. And we just got a new place. We're trying to make it, all this stuff. And I'm just like, I have 2 young boys that I got to make sure have. It was ultimate back again. I mean, I had no money. I was literally, living paycheck to paycheck for a dream. I kept investing in the dream.
Yeah.
And she, after she told me all the things of how, whatever she needed to tell me, she was my biggest supporter. And we looked at each other, and we had a tough, it wasn't easy. Yeah. But we did it together, and we were able to continue to keep coming up. And so, it's things like that you can't, that's priceless.
Yeah. Yeah. Nowadays, when you find someone rock solid too, it's kind of easy to make that decision. You're like, it's kind of hard to find people that are solid like that nowadays.
It is, and you're fortunate, young man. Because but the thing is, they'll let you know that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they don't hesitate. So one topic we were talking off camera was simply sink or swim, right? And I think that was a really important topic I wanted to highlight because I really liked how you worded it originally. How you said that is what initiates you into entrepreneurship. It's not just having the title, not creating an Instagram or the website. It's like, no, you need to go through these situations in order for you to get that. How I view it is like you're unlocking a part of your brain, right? You're unlocking that critical thinking, that ability to navigate a situation with either cards on the table or no cards on the table. So you kind of talked briefly about how you had experiences that really, I mean, you've been in the game for 30 plus years, so you've already been through that multiple times. But could you elaborate a little bit on like what sink or swim means to you?
Well, there's many definitions, but one of which for me was, you're putting your eggs in this basket, and the old cliche is don't put all your eggs in a basket. But as an entrepreneur, a lot of the times when you're trying to make it, you put them in that basket. Yeah. And you're like, I know I'm going to make it. Yeah. Which is not always the case. Yeah. And so you're going to sink or swim. And I choose to continue to swim no matter what, right? Yeah. And when we don't, I was telling you, we had an opportunity, and I'm looking at dollar signs. And this is when I my thought process changed because I kept looking at the monetary amount, what I'm going to make, what I'm going to make, what I'm going to make. And we had an opportunity to go to do this event in Dublin Pleasanton, but it was kind of on us, right?
Yeah.
So there's going to be 10,000 people there, but we're positioned in this area and we're expecting to see X amount of people. Well, we put thousands of dollars into this, the transportation alone, all this stuff, putting these kitchens up and whatnot. And we ended up doing over the weekend a couple $100. So you're going, oh my God, what am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
And the easiest thing for me to do was to sink.
Yeah.
And to say, I'm just gonna walk away. I'm gonna do whatever. I'm gonna go be a hermit. I'm whatever. And this is one of many times it's happened.
Yeah.
But the whole mentality is, okay, how do I fix this? And it takes me a minute because I have to think, because I do go through that like a death, right?
Yeah.
Like someone just died and that was my wallet.
Yeah.
And my pocket and my pride and my ego and everything. And it's also, I look at my guys. I mean, I've made some decisions where I have to look at them and go, I screwed up, man.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to do this. I hired you to work this day. I got to figure this out. So there's been opportunities and disasters that have taught me that I have no choice.
Yeah.
Like sinking isn't an option anymore.
Yeah.
So that's just little things, but well, they're not very little.
Yeah,
and they're not fun going through, right?
No, they're so just to translate that for some people, like when the emotions are high, when you're put in a situation where you really feel like you don't have options. I think a lot of people, in our society today, a lot of people will just kind of accept the circumstances of what has happened, whether it's their fault or someone else's fault. They'll just accept it. You know what I'm saying? Where as opposed to someone that has tenacity, or what's that word I'm looking for? It's not consistent, it's persistent.
Yeah.
Being able to go through stuff and still keep going. And I think like I said, you elaborated on it very well as far as initiation, because I know there's a lot of people that are pursuing this business of entrepreneurship. But the reason why I thought it was important for us to highlight you is because you're in the food industry. And the food industry is a tough business for some people that want to get into it, because there's a lot of regulations, a lot of things that you have to abide by before you can become eligible.
Absolutely. It is a tremendously difficult industry. It also, with COVID happening, the impact it's had on our industry is you're seeing a percentage of this industry dying.
Yeah.
A lot of how it used to be is not ever going to be the same. It just won't. For us, we depend on people being back at work, because that's where you get those impulse buys. Oh, I'm going to stop and get this, or oh, I'm going to get this. And we also, for us, we depend on our catering.
Yeah.
And so it is so hard. And I'm hitting on those, but you have to have a health department permit. You have to have your serve safe. You have to have your business license, your taxes, your this, your that. There's slim margins in our industry, and it's a very difficult thing. So you better be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to find a really, really, as hard as the life is now, it's going to be 10 times harder.
One of the things that you said earlier was about like finding if it makes sense for you. Like you used to look at it in a monetary perspective. We're like, oh, I'm going to make X amount of money. And I think you told me earlier that you find ways for it to make sense, for not just in that essence, but how is it going to benefit your team? What resources are going to come with that? And who's going to get exposed to that? Like what caused that shift, and like why did you think that was important? You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you one thing that happened to me. I was working in I had my place. We were established, and I was working and there was many other places within our general vicinity. And I realized that so many of these places were mom and pop shops, which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And what they do is they give you their all. They want you to taste their food. This is from, whether I'm from Thailand or China or Mexico, I want you to taste what I have to offer here.
Yeah.
Because I'm proud of it. This is my mom's recipe. This is whatever. And that's what they did, but they didn't have anyone to back them in, from a business perspective. If things went bad, they had no idea. There was nothing to help them from all these different perspectives. And I sat there and I thought, and because you don't realize, or I didn't realize that the opportunities you're given in the moment you're given, right?
Yeah.
And I started reflecting back on the opportunities I was given, and I looked at these people and I said, you know what? I owe it to them to help them through some of these tough times. And COVID was a big one. I mean, we struggled tremendously, but there were so many companies that restaurants in general that couldn't come back because they didn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
They didn't even know how to fill out paperwork for a PPP loan. They didn't know how to do this, They're just trying to make it.
Yeah.
And so, ultimately it had been kind of going that way for quite some time. And then once COVID happened, that was it. It was a different shift. It was like, okay, it's not about me. I mean, obviously I need to live and I need to make sure my family's good and my staff, but it has to be more about the community.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I believe that if our community is successful, I'll be just that much more successful as well.
Yeah.
It will trickle down.
I agree. Like that method, my mentor at the Sprint company used to say that to us when I used to manage it, because we had a bunch of people that worked with us, and one of the things they would always say is that if you succeed, then I'm successful. Because if you're making goal and you're hitting quota and all of you guys are doing good financially, then I'm doing good financially. I mean, obviously that's more of a monetary perspective, but the mentality is the same though.
It is, but and we need that, right? You need money to survive. I mean, we can't X that out. And we all want to buy things and have things, and I'm thankful. I've been very successful in my career, and we've done in a lot of times we've done very well, and a lot of times we've struggled.
Yeah.
But we're going to be persistent, and we want to have other businesses aligned with us that are going to be persistent and that we can help, and vice versa. So it kind of everyone can succeed here. There's this big pie, right? There's this big pot. I don't need to have it all. Just the majority. No, I'm kidding. I don't need to have it all. I need other people to be successful, because believe it or not, if they're successful, that gives my business longevity.
Yeah.
And so that's very important to us.
Yeah, long term. You're thinking long beyond like right now. I want to talk about your history as far as like what you've accomplished and some of the arenas you've been a part of and some of the successes. So I want to know why all these festivals in December, because I know you said that you had a lot of people hitting up your emails because they were trying to get a hold of you, but you were locked in on the business vision that you have going on here. So tell us why you're such a celebrity in the chef industry and like some of the things you've already accomplished that put you in that position.
So absolutely. And let me start it off like this.
Yes.
I have been very fortunate, and I've had some great opportunities, and I've tried to blow some of them. But that being said, we'll take it back to Gerard. Gerard was a 2-star Michelin chef. Had a 2-star Michelin restaurant. And for me, I went through that and continued to be in the Michelin kind of restaurants and so on, and enjoyed it. So, from there to the Hotel Bel Air to some private restaurants, working with Josiah Citron, which had a 1-star Michelin, and some others. And I was with the Ritz-Carlton organization, which had many throughout the country and Europe. And so I remember I was 26 years old, and I had achieved all this stuff. I was the executive sous chef at the Hotel Bel Air. And we had a 2-star Michelin restaurant there. We were the number 3 hotel in the world at that time. And so for me, to put it back into 26-year-old Baca, right? Thought he could walk on air somewhat. And I remember my boss there was George Mahaffey. He was the executive chef, but he was a consulting executive chef. And he was there only so often. And so I knew I'd been running this. This is mine. They're going to give it to me.
Yeah.
And they didn't, even though I'd been running it. And so I became very jaded and very bitter.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had an opportunity to come to the Mountain Winery. They were bringing it in house, and it was a company. And so I remember flying up and seeing it, and I walked through, and I was just like, yeah, no, in my head because it wasn't what I just came from, and I was being very arrogant. And I remember driving back, and I thought to myself, you know, I'm going to take that opportunity because that's going to be me becoming an executive chef, getting the actual title and doing something. And I did, and we got number one outdoor venue in the South Bay when I came on, and I was very proud of that. And then I went to Europe and I did some things, and I came back and I opened a restaurant in Los Angeles. And during that time, I was able to do private parties and some, like I did the Golden Globes, the Emmys, the Oscars, the Latin Grammy Awards, all these crazy things that I would have never been afforded the opportunity to do had I not gone through the experiences I went through. But when I came and opened my restaurant, my mentality had shifted from working to be, you know, just being the worker guy to being, I want more. I want more out of life. I want, and I'm not necessarily talking about financially, I'm talking about just in general. I want more knowledge. I want to do more parties. I want to meet more people. I want to do all these things, right? And so that's the time. I was 28 years old when it shifted like that. And I think it never really shifted. I think it opened up.
Yeah.
That's probably a better way to say it. And so as I was doing that, I thought I was untouchable, and then you get that humility that hits you, right? My business partner and I couldn't get along. This restaurant we opened up, which was doing amazing, we had to figure out what we were going to do because he owned half, I owned half.
Yeah.
He had a lot more money than I did.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I had to get rid of my side, and then I was like, what am I going to do? And I came back up to because I was in LA. I came back up to Northern California, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't figure out how I was going to move forward, and I took a job at the SAP Center and running their restaurant there, which I met my wife. She was the director of catering there.
Wow.
So all these doors started opening up, and it's funny because previously you and I were talking. I love sports.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to be involved in sports, and so by doing that, all these accolades I had, all these things I did, all these wineries I partnered with, all this stuff, it was the San Jose Sharks that propelled my career to do what I was going to do. It's an irony, right? It's ironic. But what ended up happening is I decided I was going to just really take my skill set to the next level. Yeah. And it wasn't going to be a restaurant, it was going to be more catering.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do was bring the restaurant style to my catering. And bring the high level food to my catering, and we did that. We got this great reputation, and it was pretty amazing. And I got fired.
Wow!
But I was already started this road, and so the person who fired me did me the best service ever, and he's one of my best friends, and we work today together.
Wow!
And looking back at the time, I thought, what a piece of shit, right? But at the time, he did me the best favor, and he was absolutely right because I was a conflict of interest. But anyway, so what ends up happening is I meet all these people and network throughout the sports arenas and these festivals and whatnot. And, you know, now today we get to say, yeah, we work with SAP, we work with the Sharks, we work with Levi's, we work with the Niners, we work with the A's. So your reputation starts to
grow,
precede you, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just me. My wife is got a huge reputation in all of this avenue, this world, and so we were able to do that. And we have great friendships, and they recommend us and whatnot. And so we're as grassroots as you'll get.
Yeah.
You know, and we love that aspect of the organic grassroots, but it is a grind.
Yeah.
It's a grind. And that's kind of why we're in demand because the best thing I say, we're consistent and we guarantee what we're going to do. We do what we say we're going to do. And so that's what it comes down to.
I love that. I love that because it's like you just hit it on the spot. You said it was organic. You know, when you're doing good business and you're leading with being a good person, like it's really easy for someone to do business with you because you're leading with being a good person. And a lot of people like to say that how you do business isn't a representation of yourself. I think it is, you know what I'm saying? Because how you treat a person is no different from how you treat someone and how you do business with. So I really appreciate that about you. So let me ask you this. So correct me if I'm wrong, you got fired from the SAP Center?
I did.
And I understand because you're a conflict of interest because you said you're naturally an entrepreneur, you were
Yeah.
doing your stuff. So at what point from when you got fired did it like kind of come a full circle moment when you still ended up working? Because you still ended up working with them still, right?
I did. So it was probably around 5 years.
Okay.
From that, we still did stuff, and I need to say this correctly. I had great relationships with people that were still part of the organization. Again, looking back at the time, it was my pride.
Yeah.
It was a lot of things that I thought were just wrong, and it was also an eye-opener that, you know what, you have to look at yourself too.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just always blame somebody.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, it was like, okay, what did I do here?
Yeah.
What can I do better? How do I look at things? And it's a reflection time to grow. And it's not easy. It's not an easy process. It's a very much, it's a maturing process.
It is. It's like you're being vulnerable, and you're also like looking in the mirror and owning what you have done wrong. And I know that was tough because essentially this is kind of like your prime, right? Because you're, getting back on your feet, you're doing well, and then you're getting the entrepreneurship thing going, and then you get fired, and then you kind of have to be like, you have to bite the bullet and figure it out. And it takes 5 years until you actually circle back with that relationship.
It was hard, and yeah, it did, and it's very accurate. It is biting the bullet.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, like there's whispers too. There's a lot of things talked about you, right? Hey, you can never control what people are going to say.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that were said, and you don't know, you are vulnerable. We all are human. We have feelings, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it made me focus on this craft. And I talk about it with the food, and I love food, but it made me focus more on entrepreneurship in general. Mm-hmm. Food is one outlet I do. Yeah. There's so much more that I love and do. Mm-hmm. But it also opened my eyes that, you got to pay the piper. Yeah. If you're going to go for it, you're going to have to pay the piper.
So when you say pay the piper, what does that mean?
So if I'm going to make decisions, I put it to you like this, in these terms. When I was growing up with my mom, I knew if I did something, I knew she was either going to get mad if I got caught and I was going to get my butt whooped, or I was going to get away with it. Mm-hmm. So, and what I mean by that, I'm using that as an example, that I knew that starting a business while working for a business, it's going to go one of two ways. Either I am going to be a conflict of interest, or they can mesh together. Now, I was hoping that they could mesh together and it could be this great thing. And ultimately it did. It just took 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. But at the time I was there, it didn't. And that's where I was asked to leave for a while. Mm. So, but that's what I'm saying. I had to pay my price. For the business I wanted to do, I had to pay my price, and my price was my job.
The cost. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying now. Yeah, a lot of us have to make sacrifices, right?
We do.
That sacrifice, and at that time, might not have been clear because it was like all in the moment, but eventually you realize that was the sacrifice of building the shop, right?
It was. And to be fair, this is all Maddie's, the shop. Mm-hmm. She's the one who developed this in the sense of how she wanted this branding and what to be. I was always more about our catering because I like doing these events. I love doing our events and giving you an experience. I hate, and I'll just tell the camera right now, I hate day-to-day operation. Yeah. I do. I love these huge events that I can go out and do some crazy cool stuff. Yeah. However, I have grown to love it because it's something that my wife is so passionate about and knows this world tremendously that I've grown. You know what? It's learning too. Yeah. And that's the most beautiful thing is that I get to learn. Every day I'm learning something.
And you guys are a pretty solid team.
We are. I mean, I know who the boss is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then plus he told me, I remember that when you first met her, she was the director of catering, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good combination right there.
She
With
is
the chef.
definitely, she puts it together. You know, but again, I mean, I dream. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm a dreamer. She's a realist, and those mesh because in my mind and my dreams have merit and have these great thoughts. And sometimes I'm ahead of the game, right?
Yeah.
And so people won't take it serious because they're like, whoa. But then you see in 10 years, what I wanted to do is being done now. Mm-hmm. You know, and those are heartbreaking when you see that.
Yeah. So, I guess as far, I want to take it back to your experience because you went through a lot, you know what I'm saying, after the 5 years after SAP. What was the moment when you went fully independent that really kind of like, you know, it kind of illustrated like, okay, this is brewing?
Do you remember when we said sink or swim?
Yes.
So the day I got fired, it was sink or swim. And that was the moment I was fully independent. And I'll tell you, it came, there was people who trained under me that opened up little places, right? And I would call them at that point as a true, you know, I didn't even know what I called myself, but I'd be like, hey man, do you need a prep cook? Like here I am doing all this stuff, getting all these accolades, asking guys if I can be their prep cook because I need to make money.
Yeah.
And so I was doing, that is when I knew there's sacrifices I'm going to make.
Yeah.
And I had opened businesses prior to this, right?
Yeah.
But never been in the position I was in. And again, it was also that I had a wife and 2 kids.
Yeah.
That said, I'm not going to go down.
Yeah. I'm not going to fight, at least.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I just said, I will not go down.
Yeah.
No matter what. There's a pivot. There's an answer. You know, it's like a mathematical equation. Sometimes you don't see it right in front of you.
Yeah.
But man, I'm going to make this answer work. I'm going to fit this square peg in a round, or the square in a round, right?
Yeah.
Kind of deal. So, you know, but I'm going to create my way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it because I'm willing to put the sacrifice and put the hard work in and effort. And that's what I do. I'm going to walk my walk.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's really says a lot about your humility because, you know, you said you opened businesses, you had all these accolades, but you took a step back and asked people that you trained to give you an opportunity, which I know for some people that have egos, you know, we were joking around about the egos, but it's a real thing. Some people wouldn't even go that route because they think like, oh, why am I going to do all that? Like, I'm wasting my time. But I appreciate the fact that you're able to put aside those things and focus on the real task at hand, which is like you need to get the money, you got a family to feed, and let alone like it's not going to stop you.
That's the coolest thing, right? That you learn about yourself is that I could go through anything. I don't know. I have a kid, 2 kids, and a wife, and I've got to be very cognizant of that. But man, I can go through it. I can, you know, and I put it like this, and I hope your viewers are. I can live in shit for a minute if I have to. Yeah. Because I'm going to get out of it. Yeah. You know, and I'm going to clean myself, and we're gonna make it. And so that's not only is that my mentality then, that's my mentality today. If I have to go through something, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make sure that we're going to be okay.
So if it's a situation that is uncomfortable, meaning like it's unforeseen and you don't know the circumstances, are you the type to take your time and strategize and go about it, or you're going head on?
So I'm gonna attack it. I'm gonna attack it, and I told you earlier, I'm under the belief, let's do this, and we're gonna figure it out. Now that being said, I'm so lucky. My partner, my wife, and people around us in business, they're gonna strategize on things. And I'm gonna walk. But I'm gonna take that on. I'm gonna take it on. She'll tell you, I'll go over and people will ask, you know, can we do this, or this? And I'm like, I can do it. I can do it. And after she gets done calling me an idiot, and we figure it out. But that's my belief. I know we can do it.
Yeah, you have a strong belief system in yourself. Everyone should, though.
Yeah, and you know, you can bend, right? But if you know your business, And that's the fortunate thing. So let me state that though, and so everyone doesn't think I'm just I'm just a nut.
Yeah.
We've worked every aspect of the food and beverage business, from backstage catering to Michelin rated restaurants to airplanes to everything you can think of. So we have that expertise at this point that I am, and that came with the years, right? So I'm at a point now where I believe we can handle just about anything because we have done everything. And to give you an example, I was working at the Hotel Bel Air when I told you, the Beverly Hills Hotel, they were sister companies. Chef Suki at the time was doing food for United Airlines. And he's like, can you come help me? And I said, sure. So I went over there and I'm like, what, this is cool. I'm putting food on a plane, but where will I ever use this again? Where am I gonna ever do this again? Flash forward to now, we feed the NHL, the Sharks, and everyone. We put the food on the plane for them.
Yeah.
So it's crazy the experiences you have, right?
And it's like levels that you create.
It is. You're not. It's insane. When I look at the food we put on the plane, I'm actually I'm thankful that we have this expertise because I get to see the love we put, and it's all made from scratch. It's not as if we buy stuff. And so and the technology, obviously, how they warm it, how they do this and whatnot. So it's just really cool. And that's another thing, with Silicon Valley, we have technology.
Yeah.
And so I talk about food, but just within my confines of my industry that I'm in, technology plays such a role from your iPad that can flip over, and now you don't even need a cashier sometimes. You have someone ordering, which I like, but I don't, because we want people to always have a job.
Yeah.
To these robots, you've seen the robots out there taking the food out, and there's so much going on that it's actually kind of cool to watch as this goes on.
So 2 questions. I definitely want to pick your brain about the AI and just like technology shift in the food industry. And the second question I have is about just the food industry for someone coming up and like some tips for them. So my question to you is like, you just talked about it. There's people, getting replaced because technology is shifting the food industry. And because I think that's one of the first industries that technology will shift as far as like eliminating jobs. So like, what's your point of view on it? Like pros and cons, and
Let me take it a different way.
Yeah.
Let me say this. In today's day and age, the labor force of our industry is hard to find.
Yeah.
And it's not the same labor force, right? So we'll say pros and cons. So a pro, because you're not finding that labor force, possibly technology helps you out there. A con for me is I believe everyone should work in the food and beverage industry because they see in real time. It's like that, right? I got to move. I got to do this. I got to do that. I think what that does is that creates a great employer, entrepreneur for the future, because you're not sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
You're dealing with people. So where are we going? Well, COVID started that, and truth be told, it was happening before COVID. We were seeing this shift, and many of us don't want to admit that, but we were. So either we're going to look to the future of where this industry goes, because there's going to be the high level, the Thomas Kellers and so on that have their Michelin, 3 Michelin rated stuff, and that's going to be for people. It's a one-time thing or whatever. But where you're going to see is this mid-level of common ground that they're the ones who are going to be affected. And so how do we change their dynamic or educate them, myself included, so that we can really utilize AI to our advantage. And instead of looking at it as it's going to destroy things. And that's a tough question to answer, right?
Yeah, it's fairly new. I just think it's relevant to bring up. We live in Silicon Valley.
We do.
So I feel like we might have a better foot on the field compared to the rest of the nation, like whoever's tuning in.
And I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I just, it's still...
It's fresh. It's very fresh.
It is.
Have you heard of ChatGPT?
No, so you're going to educate me right now.
This thing is crazy. I'm talking about like it's artificial intelligence, but basically you can ask it anything and then it's going to give you a very human-like response. So for example, I asked them, write me a YouTube description for Any Given Bars, which is my hip hop show that I do with my friends.
Yeah.
That thing literally gave me a perfect description of the platform to the detail. Like I couldn't tell it was a robot. It looked like someone wrote it, but just really detailed.
It's funny because now that you said that, the gentleman that was here earlier, Jose.
Yes.
You know very well.
Yes.
He actually told me about it.
Yep.
And he's telling me one day because I was like, oh man, I write these business plans because I believe that we're going to continue to grow and do all this stuff. So I do all this stuff, and it's my brain. It's picking my brain and goes, hey, you can do this, and they'll help you with that. And I'm looking at him like. And then the pride kicks in. I'm like, get the hell out of my office right now. But
it might be a circle moment. It might be a full circle moment right now.
It could be, and that's but an old dog like me has to learn how to engage. I mean, I'm not the best tech savvy person. I'm not the best of this. I have to learn and be open, right, to be able to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. At first, I was kind of like skeptical, but once I started, I wrote I even had some grammatical corrections on my grant that I was applying for, and it was able to reiterate exactly what I wrote, and it was very hard to distinguish if it was me or someone else.
See, that's amazing though.
So I see stuff like this helping our society, and I also see it like how you said it disrupts like a camaraderie or a work culture, like certain things like that you can't replace with a robot.
You're right. So have you ever seen the movie WALL-E?
I'm very familiar with WALL-E, but I only seen the previews and the trailers. I never watched the whole movie.
At the end of WALL-E, we all became fat as shit, right? And we can't move. The robots, everything was doing everything for us. And it was such a, you got to see it.
It's almost funny because it's almost terrifying how funny it is and true at the same time, because I mean, we've already seen America become more obese and like more, not like aware of the food they intake,
Sure.
Because a lot, like they even say, a lot of processed foods and stuff like result to cancer and things of that nature. So it's like, I can see that happening. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I can, but that's the point. It's like we have to draw the line at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And funny story. My the rave is the PS5 or this or that, and I'm not a gamer, but one day my wife and I are driving. I go, let's go buy a PS5.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how much in demand they are because I don't do it. So we go and no one has when we buy, but we luck out. We're at Best Buy and we get one. And so I start the game, and I haven't played a video game probably in 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. And I see the graphics, and then I'm like, wow, it's like a movie. And then I'm thinking to myself, whoa, this is what the kids are doing though, right? And I don't play it, so I just have it like a fool. But we're not going outside. My generation, we'd go outside, we'd play. I had to go throw the football. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you went out, right?
Yeah.
These are things we wanted to do. We're not doing that anymore. We're playing video games and those kind of things, and that's where I think it could get bad. It could get ugly. Right?
I agree. And it's already happening with like, Oculus and the metaverse and stuff like that. And I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen eventually even more. I saw, Mark Zuckerberg did a trailer for the Oculus with, there was a UFC fight this past weekend with Islam and Volkanovski, some of the best fighters in the UFC right now. And
it was a great fight, by the way.
I know, it was a great fight.
It was a great. Before you go into it, who did you have winning that fight, really?
I wanted Volkanovski to win.
Did you think that Islam did beat him, though?
It's tough because, like, he won majority of, like, him on the ground, which is relevant in scoring. Yeah. But Volkanovski, he was whooping his ass at the last round.
He was, but his takedown defense was awesome. He wasn't beat up. Like, he was, like, there the whole time. Like,
he wasn't beat up, and Islam looked exhausted, and he was beat up.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, they deserve a second fight, if you ask me.
So, and I agree with you. Okay, I'm sorry. I love that stuff. My brother,
Yeah,
my younger
I love
brother,
watching UFC.
is a pro MMA fighter.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he's 9-0.
Mm.
He's but he's also 33 years old now,
Yeah.
and he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He has other businesses. He does as a hobby.
It's a diverse skill set right there.
Really does. And my younger brother, who can whoop my butt now, which is that's humbling too. So I've been humbled a lot.
Yeah. What I was gonna say about the UFC thing was, damn, I lost my
With
train.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes, he was with Volkanovski in the equipment, and they were simulating a fight. But on the camera, like the visual that they would see on the screen was an animated version of themselves, but it was so accurate. Like you could not, like if they were fighting in two separate rooms, like you couldn't tell that they were not in the same room because the realistic gameplay looked too real. And they're simulating a fight, you know.
That's crazy.
And you've seen Mark Zuckerberg on the internet. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's been like caught like training in MMA gear and all that. So I think that was what it was for, though, for this commercial, so he could like look like he can meet with these guys. And you know, this guy's chilling with Dana White now, so you know, eventually he's cracking the code to get into the culture space.
Well, and you know what though? I mean, going back to entrepreneurship, right? Yeah. He's one to look at too, in the sense that, you know, and about making good, bad calls, right?
Yeah.
When COVID happened, obviously people were going to be at home because they had to be, and that raised Meta stock big time, right?
Big time, yeah.
But there was no movement on that.
Yeah.
Where do we keep going?
Yeah, like direction.
And it's so, you know, but that's part of, you know, learning, right?
Business
For us
world.
all as we watch it in real time.
I agree. I think there's a lot of learning in business. I think everyone should take some type of business approach in their life, whether it's investing or creating learning a craft that's going to become a trade, or even you know, investing into someone local businesses. I think there's multiple ways to go about it. I don't think everyone's made to be an entrepreneur.
No, they're not.
I think, you know, some people. I just think in today's time where we have access to the phone, we have access to the internet, we have access to resources, like anyone can participate, even in the smallest form. So that's the only reason why I feel like it's yes and no for me, because it's like I really see people that pretend to be entrepreneurs and they have yet to, like, you know, make their first, you know what I'm saying, like their first big deal or something like that.
So let me tell you something, young man.
Yes.
I've watched you. We've talked on many occasions.
Yes.
This is way too long in the making. I'm glad we're here today. I wish we could have, you know, and we'll continue to build from. But
sure.
I watched the work you've put in, and you're a young man, and there's not a lot of people who are going to put that kind of work in.
Yeah.
So when they tell you that I'm an entrepreneur, and we talk all these things of sink or swim or you're back against the wall, but they're not even that, right? They have the ability to put that work and effort in now, and they don't.
Yeah.
But they talk. They talk a lot. And everyone has an opinion, you know? But you lived it. We talked some of the stories you've had to go through.
Yeah.
And dude, you're not... You'll do 7 in the morning to 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And you'll do it 5 days a week if you have to, or however long and whatever.
Yeah.
That's part of this game.
Yeah.
You know, and you watch some of these other guys, these tech moguls. I mean, let's talk like Mark Cuban. They're up at 4 in the morning. They're doing these things, and that's either you're willing to do that, or you have, you know, it's in you. Yeah. Or you're not. One of my favorite quotes was from a friend, and it's a cliche. He owns the catering company that hires us to do caterings for the sports teams. Yeah. And he's always like, Rod, if I don't do it, someone else is.
Yeah, that's always true.
Right?
Yep.
And I love that approach. You know, if I don't do it, someone else is. My goal is that I'm going to do it, and we're going to do it the best, and the best that we can possibly do. You know, we're going to put every ounce of energy into everything we do. But the reality is someone else will.
Yeah, that's very true. In anything. In any industry.
But you know, and it brings me to a different point, too, with, like, even watching your growth. And which I'm so proud of. I mean, and you are admired by many, and you need to, take a step back sometimes and see and reflect on that, because that's important. I know you're still growing and you're doing your thing, but it is very inspirational to many, especially in your age bracket, right? But your whole thing of mentor Mondays and everything, I love it because so many people, and I'm sure you feel this, are not willing to give you information because it's a hard life. It's ugly. It ruins relationships. There could be legal battles. It could be all these things. And people hold that stuff so close to the vest than rather to see someone else put that time and effort in to give them that shot. And that's part of mentorship. I hope that people will change that, especially for our community, right?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, thank you. I appreciate that. You've known me long enough to see like some of the challenges I've dealt with just even this 2 years. This past 2 years has been like nothing but like growing and learning curves and stuff like that. As far as mentorship, I think that I've been across many people who have success and not have shared it, or maybe are just like, they just don't want to give me everything, right?
Yeah.
But I've also met people that are very giving and are very good leaders in the community. And those are the people that make this important for me to keep it going, because I know like people like yourself who are willing to share the challenges you went through and being vulnerable and talking about your ego, like that's vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate that, because there are a lot of food entrepreneurs in San Jose, believe it or not, young, seasoned people are just getting their foot in the door, and they're hungry. Like I see them, they're serving plates to the hungry people. They're hungry themselves. Like they're delivering. So I know some people in San Jose will take this content and we'll do something with it. So I guess my last question to you is like, what's some advice that you could give to the food entrepreneurs in San Jose, South Bay area? I mean, shit, someone in Pennsylvania could be watching this shit.
They could.
So what's your advice to any young food entrepreneurs?
So there's a few things, and the first one sounds harsh, but it's not. One is shut up, listen, and learn. That is one of the best things I learned, especially coming up, because you get to you don't get to trip yourself, right? You're like learning, and what happens is you learn good, bad, and ugly and different, right? One of the best things I've been able to learn throughout my career, and I hope that young people will too, is that there's a lot of people who are wrong. And you get to see it. You get to see it happen, and it makes you pivot and go, okay, that's not the right step. But the biggest thing, in all honesty, is passionate, really wanting to do this, and educating yourself and surrounding yourself around people, because cooking is one part of it, or serving people is one part of it. You got to cover yourself with what's happening in today's day and age, and so, but the passion has to be there. Because this isn't a life for everybody. I mean, like I still will do 18-hour days, and I'll do that. That's more of my average than it isn't. So you either have to love it or you're not.
Well, I'm pretty sure someone out there in the food community will definitely appreciate the gems that you just gave. Is there any upcoming things that people should stay tuned for, things that you have coming up, or some upcoming events that you're going to be a part of, anything of that nature?
So for us, we definitely we have our cafe here here on North First Street, and it actually is open to everyone. We just don't invite everyone right now because there's rational reasons why. But we're negotiating possibly doing Sonoma Speedway for their big series. We're going to be doing the Monterey Jazz Festival, and there's a lot that I can't even think of because it's a little overwhelming in a sense. But I'm working on some big projects. In fact, some that I want you to be part of, and our community. So we'll see. All I can say is stay tuned because I got to come back for another show so we can talk about the new stuff.
No, we're going to definitely talk about the new stuff. Well, hey, Chef Baca, once again, I really appreciate you taking the time. You've been a very good friend, and we've only spoken on a few occasions over the years, but like every time you've spoken with me, you've been very intentional with your words, and I really appreciate just your guidance as far as just like business knowledge and community. You know what I'm saying? One last thing I do want to also highlight is this man did help out the homeless community by opening up Hunger at Homes with partnerships with other organizations.
We did. So we did the Chef's Market.
Yep.
Where we brought Hunger at Home, and we were able to feed our furloughed, laid off, and homeless community through that during COVID. And I am proud of that. I will say that.
Yeah.
That's something that's a highlight for us because nothing like that has ever been done.
Yeah.
And for us to do it here in San Jose and Silicon Valley was super. It was amazing because this is for many, my wife. This is born and raised, and to do something for our community is absolutely, it's priceless.
Yep. No, you took it out my mouth. How many people do you think? How many people? How long did you have active, and how many people did you serve?
We did it for. We were able to do it for a month, and we fed just south of 2,000 people.
Wow.
And it's also, that was a challenge to our community, right?
Yeah.
That was like, if you buy something, we're going to give this in return.
Yeah.
And, but we've continued that. So the whole thing was, I opened a nonprofit for that.
Yeah.
We continue to work with that to do stuff for people who need, right? Yeah. And so that's part of our community aspect, and we need to be part of that. We really do.
And like I said, you said it earlier, like instead of running away from it, you ran towards COVID and you provided a solution for a lot of people. Because I was right there in downtown witnessing everything and turn into a ghost town. I seen the truck all the time going to the office. So, we do commend you for that, and the community does appreciate you. So once again, thank you for being a part of this show. I hope a lot of people took value from this. And we're likely going to do some again in the future as far as content and projects. We'll see what's up.
We got projects. Our goal, and I'm going to say this finishing,
Yes,
is I want to see you and your company come up. And if we can help in any way, shape, or form, we always got you.
You heard it. You heard it from him directly, and it's on camera. Hey, man, no, for real. Thank you for everything.
We appreciate you.
I'm gonna give a conclusion. Make sure that folks know it ain't exclusive. If it ain't an EMLN exclusive, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, iTunes, Spotify, every Monday, 8 a.m. If you late, it's all good. Just turn it on and you listen to it on your way home or after work. Enjoy some knowledge and some good content. So once again, thank you guys. We appreciate y'all. It ain't exclusive. It ain't an EMLN exclusive, and we out. Peace. Yes, sir.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, give it to you, son. Appreciate you, man.
Of course.
I can help you move this sign back, though.
Dude. You guys got a lot of work. Don't even worry. I got that.
Oh, man.
Don't let this
We finally
back
got the
up.
Chef Baca interview in the book. Man. How long you usually stay here?
Just depending on what's going on. So, last night I was here till 10. We had the sharks fight today. It just depends.